I'm curious. Yes, it works. It's a magical device around us. I hear quite a bit of echo. Maybe we could. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you so much, Anais. Thank you so much for the invitation to be here. Thank you so much, Andrea, that we are doing this together in the heat. Thank you so much for being here with us. Andrea and I have been working together on and off for quite some years now. We've also become friends, so there's a lively exchange whenever we see each other. And sometimes it's not the easiest starting point for a public conversation. So I hope we can spark your interest in what we will talk about. I also would like to add that Andrea Büttner's works are held amongst in the international collections that Anais was mentioning. They're also at the collection of Kunsthaus Zürich, very local, and also at the Kunstmuseum Basel, where we met actually. When I invited you, I think it was in 21, was it still COVID, I believe? I don't remember how I reached you, maybe through a website or so, but I basically wrote an email to her out of the blue and she replied and we got into a conversation. And when I invited you to do an exhibition together, Andrea actually quite clearly said, but without woodcuts. And that was quite a tough statement at the time, also because Andrea Büttner, and I believe that all of you that are here have had the chance to at least peek into the beautiful exhibition at your back, know that the woodcut is really an essential moment actually in your work. It's also, I think, what one could call your signature style in a way. Andrea Büttner in the early 2000s entered the art world with huge woodcuts at a moment when people were rather, also a bit irritated about this very analog medium, artistic medium. So anyhow, you stuck to the woodcut, and I'm so glad at the time you also changed your mind. So the woodcuts are back in your work and you work with them. So the exhibition here in Uster, quite early on in the process, you said it should be about work. Maybe you could revisit that moment and what made you say this.
Yeah, I also hear an echo, but I'm sure it's fine. I guess I wanted to do something here that, like I assume any artist who exhibits here, that responds to the Walter de Maria floor piece. And in my case, I was thinking about doing something that is really about this gesture of bending down. When people installed that work here, that looks so white and pristine and geometrical, there was labor involved. There was labor involved of bending down, of making these gypsum sculptures, and this has quite some resonance within my own practice. There are works now that deal with the asparagus harvest, and even the shape of these white asparagus sprouts somehow speaks to these floor pieces here, to my mind at least. This is how I thought I start. That's how the title came.
Yeah, I remember also the fact that this is a historical site of work, that the Zellweger Areal has this, I think we spoke about that, was also a reason why. And then you said, I would love to show the very early video, Little Works.
Yeah.
And little works luckily also corresponds to a part of the collection of the Bechtler Stiftung. Yes, I believe every word you say. Those two words sort of come from the same context. Maybe you could reconnect a bit to that moment. Those are also the two oldest works actually in the show. They're from 07, I think, 27, and the newest works are from just now, so it's quite a span. But maybe reconnect with, what is it, 22 years ago? Quite fun.
So 22 years ago, 18 years ago, your maths.
My math.
I was sitting on a bus right in London from Ladbroke Grove to Notting Hill, Royal Albert Hall, and on the bus next to me there was a nun in a habit of the Carmelite nuns, and I know the habits of the Carmelite nuns very well from my childhood. And I knew I was living next to this Carmelite monastery in Ladbroke Grove, Notting Hill. And I said to the nun, can I meet you and can I work with you? I write a PhD on shame. And I think nuns are one area that touch feelings of shame and embarrassment. There's a whole area of nun porn, for example. Then I know nuns who dance, expressive dances, the Canticle of the Sun, for example, Franciscan nuns. So because I was interested in shame, I approached this nun living next to me. And then Carmelites live in a closed convent, closed community, very medieval style of life. And also this Carmelite convent that you see in the video live in a closed community. Nobody can enter this community, and they leave it only when they visit a doctor or something like that. And we became friends, the community and I, by me drawing them every evening during their Vesper prayer in the church. And then they told me at one point about something they call little works. Little works are small objects that they make during their leisure time. And I asked the nuns if they would film the little works for me. And I handed over a camera to the nuns, and they filmed it and gave the material back. And I edited it. And there is studio visits, the installation of a show, and a private view. So exactly what we experience in the art world. And little works is just it's a term that has become important for my own practice, thinking about my own work in relation to major works, big art, relevant work. It became a kind of a tool to think about how to approach practice without anxiety, or where anxieties come from when you're an artist. Littleness is also a word that's very important for the nuns, because they have a saint, the little Teresa of Lisieux, the little Therese, and she has a spirituality of the little way. So this is also important for the little works. Yeah. Is this too theoretical, maybe?
We should ask the audience. But the Little Works video also, I think, became the first of a whole series, actually. Quite a substantial body of work consisting of videos that sort of document your engagement, your friendship, your interest for nuns or for communities. And one that is rather iconic and that I briefly want to recall is the one where Andrea has this conversation with the little sisters just outside Rome in Ostia. And they belong to a to a convent that works in fairgrounds, that believes that belief should be where the people are. And so it's with the fairgrounds. And to me, that was quite an important encounter with your work, actually, because for me, I didn't grow up with so much religion around me, so rather in a secular context, and then visiting a Christian religion was somewhat charged. But these nuns are just the friendliest, open-minded women in the world, and it became such a human experience in a way. So it really opened up to me, your work in a way, to sort of understand how this Christian tradition could be applied without having to start believing in a way on a human scale. And so the little, the modesty, the littleness, the wanting to be with people, and the craftiness also of these, what these women do. I would also like to connect that with the brown wall painting, that the brown wall painting here in this context, and I see it beautifully with Walter de Maria here in one eye and Andrea's brown wall painting in the other eye, is of course also a reaction to a almost painfully white cube, but it also has a connection to the modesty, right? The St. Francis story.
Yeah. I mean, this is something that I started, I think also 2005. And it's painted as high as I can reach with the brush, the space. So the top line is like irregular. It's just me walking along and stretching myself. It's also about height, I guess, and about a body being in a space. And it's really at a time where I thought a lot about Dieter Roth and read about Dieter Roth and also wrote about Dieter Roth and his relation to shame, and but also about St. Francis and Freud. And so there are many connections to the brown habit, to shit, to chocolate, but really also being in a space that's not a white cube, that's not pristine, that is more agreeable. Yeah, I mean, it's really speaks to this experience entering a gallery and these beautiful young women sitting at a desk, and everything is like quite perfect now. And art shouldn't be like this, I think.
More down to earth.
Not down to earth, but not so perfect. Or perfect in a different way.
Yeah. I recall you saying also that the brown wall painting sort of gives a home to the works that you're displaying. I mean, it's also, if I can say, a rather monumental gesture of yours. It's not a way of belittling. It's also sort of claiming space in a way quite impressively. But when I had a guided tour here, there was an interesting remark also that someone was almost a bit provoked by the fact that you draw the top line and also you have and show a deep interest in making work, in crafting, and but let the rest paint by the professionals. Maybe you could talk a little bit about those two poles in your work.
Interesting question. Yeah.
Like, why does the top line need to be...
Isn't that interesting that the person who comes here to paint the wall is being paid for their labor, and I'm not being paid for this labor. He's paid maybe by the hour or by the day, I don't know, we didn't speak about this, and I'm not. So it's a wholly it's a very different economy. That's this question of these different economies is not at all central to the work. I mean, in the beginning, when I didn't work in institutions that paid for the professional painter coming in, I did do the painting work, labor myself. Yeah? But now I rather go to the swimming pool instead of doing that. That's true. And there are other works in the show where this is exactly key to understanding the work, like the carved asparaguses on the table that look maybe closer to our understanding of an individual mark, of a craft object, of something that a maker has made in a charged sense of the word maker, but they're all bought from students who study wood carving. Yeah. Yeah. And then they're all handmade, and I paid these students, and they show something that is harvested by hand, and that can asparagus that can still only be harvested by hand. And there are different economies, and we can't resolve that as artists. Yeah.
And the asparagus context is a very good example of these two economies in a way. So the first COVID spring in 2020, there was this national debate, discourse in Germany, sort of talking about whether the working migrants coming from Southern Europe, Eastern Europe should still be allowed to travel while no one else is actually traveling, coming to help harvesting the asparagus, or should they also stay safe, as we thought at the time, and the asparagus should rot on the fields. So that was a national debate in the newspapers, in the news, that Andrea was following quite a bit, as I understand, and also being based in Berlin, where there's a lot of asparagus farms around it. You went and visited and engaged with the farmers, the harvesters that were eventually actually brought to harvest the asparagus.
Yeah, that's true. So we always did weekend trips with the family to asparagus farms. And I was drawing the asparagus harvest, which is quite also hobbyesque as artistic work, no? If you think that I'm there as a middle-aged woman with my sketchbook, I think I used an A3 sketchbook, like with the nuns, I used an A3 sketchbook, drawing them praying. And there are these men from Eastern Europe, really not, we couldn't share a language, and I draw them, and then it felt a bit out of place, like as if I'm Spitzweg or something, yeah, and I think that was important to have this feeling of being out of place. I thought if I came here with a crew and made a documentary or essay film and came with a producer and a sound technician and a camera person, I would feel less exposed to this out of placedness. Yeah? But still, my work is, and also there might be people harvesting who are better at drawing than I am. Yeah? I thought, if they come and look at my drawings, they might be disappointed that I take so much effort, coming every Saturday, drawing them, and then they might be disappointed that I don't capture them exactly or something. Yeah? Maybe they draw better than I do, but I can project my interior life in my time, use my time in that way. Yeah? And if I used a camera and other tools that look more refined or more maybe activist or more political, I would also project my interior life in a more in a way that I would feel more agency, has more agency. And I think it's good to have a sense that one doesn't have agency. Yeah, and that's why drawing is good, I think.
And then from the drawing, so you took the A3 block back?
Yeah. Then I thought I want to make some real art. Yeah, I don't know if I've resolved it actually, because there are several works. Yeah? There is this asparagus field, a ceramic that has the shape of an asparagus field. And the carvings, I first had the idea for the carvings really because of the shape, because I thought asparagus looks a lot like drumsticks also. So that's how I had this wood association, because of a drumstick. But yeah, it became really something different about a nationally cherished vegetable that is so local, and a critique of craft fashions within contemporary art. I'm really very critical of everything that has to do with weaving, pottery, carving, and I think it's a critical relationship because I make woodcuts. Yeah, but I always had a wish that I had come up with a work that encompasses it all. Yeah, maybe it will come one day.
So now it quite, I think, quite beautifully challenges in this net of the monumental big woodcut, beautiful colored woodcuts of harvesting individuals, a close-up in etching on the hands.
Yeah, that's true. So something very, the movements became, they're very sexual, of course, at one point. And this was what the, I don't know, the etchings maybe are closest to, maybe in a very repressed way, I guess. And then, of course, there's the slideshow. And the slides are an art history of bending, of labor and of bending during work. And this slideshow really comes from this sense of illegitimacy, of this sense of awkwardness, of looking at others working. And then I thought, but art history is full of people being drawn and painted while doing work. Yeah, and I was really curious to look back at art history and see when does it look, what are the different ways to deal with it, and what is transported in these different drawings? What is actually kitsch? What is Biedermeier? What is realism? Yeah, what are the different ways
of showing work,
of showing
and
work?
low work.
Yeah.
And it also is I think Andrea Büttner's exhibitions are so inspiring, because they usually really make you connect the different aspects. It's really like you dive into a chapter in a way of like a segment of what you're busy with, and then you connect them. It can be that it's just a single work, like as we will experience at the art fair next week, or maybe sometimes in a collection, but I really think the density of the connections and the readability that is not there necessarily given from you, but that visitors can get, is really why these exhibitions, I experience them as very sensual also in a way. It's really, you are there physically surrounded with the work and have to engage, and I'm really grateful for that. I would like to shift to the newest body of work that made you revisit woodcut. but in a slight different way. It feels, yeah. I give you the word. Maybe you can. Have you all seen the newest works? There are these black, basically the monochromatic woodcuts in black this time. Mm-hmm. There were also color tests, but they're black here. And they live quite a bit from their, I would almost say, painterly quality, like in monochromatic painting. And they have these always in the upper right corner, towards the middle, they bring in words. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think everybody knows how a woodcut works because everybody has cut into potatoes or made lino cuts at school. So when you carve something and print it, it's mirrored. So if you want to cut something that you can read in a straightforward way, you have cut the lettering in a mirrored way. Yeah, and so I wanted to, And I'm invited in a group show at the Jewish Museum in Berlin that will open next year on Utopia, I think. And this is starting about this work on Utopia. So it says, jetzt, 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 now, now, now. And this now is, of course, carved at different moments. So the now is always a different moment. And then it says also a quote by Ernst Bloch. This describes every situation. Ich bin, aber wir haben uns nicht. Ich bin, aber ich habe mich nicht, darum werden wir erst. And I wanted to try how this looks in English. The language of the art market. This utopian sentence. 3 sentences. I am, I don't have myself, hence only we are becoming. I'm not sure yet what it means to read it in English or German. Yeah? And then there's a quote from the Hebrew Bible. I see him, but not now. Now, and so this is the context of these sentences, and mirrored really because it's really reflexive on how the woodcut works as a medium, and so it's also in the right corner because I start writing on the left top corner, yeah. And it's really written in a quick way, very quickly with a knife. Like I make a line by making 2 cuts, chop, chop, and then it's this shape. And I wanted to go back to a beginning and only in a way scratch. It feels a bit like I'm feeling close to walls, drawings when I do this, and think the jetzt or the drawing is already in the wood, yeah, and I'm just there as a body and make some little scratches, and so there's much less formal concern, less iconography. It's really about this, what a drawing is, something small. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I have to think of Barnett Newman, which we don't have here now, but there are these paintings where it's really about abstraction, but you sense his deep wish to charge it with content, and that abstraction is not just formalism, but it's actually expressing a feeling, a sense, a greater sense of, and he has this, often it's also referencing the Hebrew Bible, yeah, and or where he has there are, having worked for so many years at Kunstmuseum Basel, I have to think of the ones there, and forgive me, and it's sort of day one from the Genesis, right? So it's and it's just this blue with a little light, and it's also this interest in the painterly. In painting, in just applying painting in the painterly stroke. It's not a flat surface, it's a surface that actually lives. And so I'm very curious to learn where you'll be going with that series, because there is to me, forgive me the word, but an essentialism coming.
Yeah. So I think I will be going towards didactic exhibitions, and I'm interested in a relationship between essentialism and didactic exhibitions, like in the in the Friedensmuseum, in the Peace Library that I showed at Basel. But I think also, so I'm really troubled by the woodcut, and because there seems to be a problem of comfort, of retreat, of warmth that you can take home and with you. And I'm not interested in this promise at all. I think I am interested politically in truth, in facing alienation, in maybe even more in accelerationism. I think retreat is reactionary. And so I'm really troubled by my own medium from the beginning. And I think the jetzt and the grain together, and this is something I didn't know when I look at it. Of course, the grain is repeated in each piece, because the wood is not one big tree that's cut it's like, of course, tiny pieces that are repeated because they're glued together, and that it's a huge industry, the wood industry. So the grain that you see really speaks of a repetition that is the repetition of industry and of alienation. And that's really great. Yeah. So I have the complexity for me, for my work, it's great, because now I have this is something that contradicts the promise of wholesomeness that we all look for in fiber art, weaving, pottery, and that a promise I don't want to give with the woodcut.
Good.
Keep it challenging also for yourself. Yeah. And one of the quotes, when we prepared the show, I was repeatedly asking Andrea, so where are the quotes coming from? Can you give me the reference who wrote actually the quotes? And I remember from the studio visit in Berlin that you have this book where there are these quotes, but not necessarily the reference.
Yeah.
So it wasn't always that clear or easy to find out, and in one of the quotes is referenced here, the Enzbloch.
Yeah.
And I would like to ask you to talk a little bit about, and I do lack the English term for Wahlverwandtschaft, and maybe someone can help. It's like your chosen family. It's and the Wahlverwandtschaften in relation to cultural history, or the history of cultural production in the wider sense.
Yeah.
What's your, how is that something you productively engage with?
Generally.
This is now a starting point, is maybe Ernst Bloch, but maybe it's also more generally.
So, so Ernst Bloch, Frankfurter Schule. There is no outside, for example. When I go to the asparagus, there is no outside point from society from which I can criticize society from outside. Yeah? That's the position of the Frankfurt School, I would say. So if I go and draw asparagus, I'm not outside. I'm not a saint. I'm not changing the situation. And this is a position many artists might take. I'm not taking that position. There is no outside. Yeah? Also, our art is not outside. It is never in a position outside. Yeah? So that's the dialectics of the Frankfurt School. Yeah? And it's important for me to bring that into a work that is still a bit old-fashioned in its look, no? Made by hand, in printmaking. So it's also a complicated relation to art. That is like, I love the history of art. Yeah? That's also the Wahlverwandtschaften. I'm an art historian. I studied art history. I love other artists, and I love to look at other artists also for my work. Yeah? And yeah.
The commentary from within, it's more like a conversation than a comment.